For my job today, I set aside today and tomorrow. This is my parents' camper, and they take it out a couple times a year. Your typical camper, Puma brand. But they were having trouble with the batteries. It does have a plug-in. It has two batteries up here. It does have a plug-in, so you can plug it in, and that'll keep the batteries charged. But I've been telling them they need to get a solar panel so that they can have quiet, free charging whether they're camping or whether it's at home, just parked outside. So that's what I'm going to do today and tomorrow. For that, I have a 100-watt solar panel. Typical size of 100-watt. Renogy is the brand I use, and you can get these in different dimensions. But I chose the long, narrow one for no particular reason, just because I could. A lot of room up there. Not a lot of size requirements like the van has. And I'll show you the rest of it here. So this is going to be a real simple solar panel installation. Nothing too fancy. 100 watts, nothing too heavy duty. So to finish that off, I've got one of my favorite things, the Lynx solar box to get it in through the roof. My Z-channel mounts for the solar panel. That's the real basic install, so not a heavy duty, super fancy charge controller, and not MPPT or anything like that. It's really basic. But one feature I do like about it is it's got a built-in USB port on the side right here. So I'm going to try to mount it in the trailer somewhere where it's fairly accessible to a counter or something, and then they can plug in like their phones or their iPads or something like directly into this and charge it without having to have adapters and all that kind of stuff. So there's the charge controller, and here's the cords that'll go from the top, hook up to the panel, and down into the charge controller, and then over to the power center. Now I'm going to go inside and see where we're going to put it. So I think what I'm going to do is take the wire down the back of those tall cabinets there, down to that bottom one there, and that's where this vent pipe is. Follow that into here, mount the charge controller here, and then take the out wires down through that hole into their power center, which is down here. I hate how they mount these power centers down low. I know it's just so it's access to the bottom for the battery, but not very convenient when you want to work on it or see what's going on. But that's neither here nor there, so I think that's what I'm going to do. Now for the hard part. The first thing I'm going to do is put on these Z-channel, these mounting brackets, and they just slip on with these round sides facing the top. You can pick any spot along here. There are pre-drilled holes along here, and you could even make your own if you wanted to go around the side, but I'm just going to stick to these. And for that, all you need is the included hardware. You got a washer on the outside. On the other side, you have a washer, a lock washer, and a nut on the inside down here. And I'm going to put those on now. For that, you need an elusive 10mm socket. And another wrench. Sure it's good and tight, just like that, and do that to all four. The four of them come with the kit. Okay, and there you have it. All four are on. Got them on the corners. Now it's time to get this up on the roof up there and see where we want to put it. Okay, now I've got most of the stuff I'm going to need up here. That's about where I want the solar panel to go. Excuse the wind, it's kind of windy this afternoon now. My hole that I'm going to go in is going to be somewhere over there behind the refrigerator vent and in front of this. So first I'm going to go inside and drill a pilot hole up to see where that's going to go. And I want to get all the connections made up here before I secure this down. That way you can access the back of it to plug in the cables. So that's next, drill a pilot hole. My goal is to get the wires to come down in that thinking that corner there, but I'm going to space it back to this corner so I stay away from that refrigerator vent just in case I'm close to that. I want to make sure I have enough room to get it in there. So I'm going to drill a pilot hole back in that corner, and then we'll go up to the roof and see about where it came out. Okay, I got my pilot hole. This does get a little messy, so have the vacuum at the ready when you're all done. Anyway, we'll go up on the roof, see where that came out. Okay, so here's our pilot hole here, and that's going to be perfect. I'll mount that piece over here. The cords will go down through there and back over to here, so that's going to be just fine. So next up is putting this together and running these wires through this, and then I'll shove the excess all down inside the cabinet down there. I'll put this together and I'll show you that when it's done. Now these have a simple washer design. You take off this nut here, you've got a washer there. You stick that in there and you just twist it on there, and a little overhand tight is all you want to do. You don't want to wrench on it and break these plastic parts there. If you just do it a little overhand tight, you'll be good. And that should work. Then you take these off. Your wire will feed through there loosely right when it's like this, and then it will tighten around it once you put these back on. But you want to make sure you feed these on there so you're not stuck at the end. I'll feed those through there right now. See how I've got these on here first. Now I can feed this through. Then I can tighten it up when it's all done. Okay, so I got them fed through there and these put on. And once again, hand tight. These are plastic PVC, aka plastic parts. So fragile, especially when it's colder. You don't want to over torque them and break them. And you want to leave enough excess to reach over to your panel. I like to leave enough so that the connection, even though those are waterproof connections, I still want to put them underneath this panel so they stay out of the sun and out of the weather. So leave a little excess there for that. There is a little bit of excess on the panel side too, but it's good to have a little extra just in case you need it. And now I'm just feeding all the excess down inside into that cabinet there. And this will sit on top, just like so, with enough excess to reach over here to the panel. And that's how it will look. I'll seal it now. Now the original adhesive I'm using for this is just silicone sealant, just clear silicone, and then I'll put some lap sealant. Once that dries and it stays, I'll put some lap sealant that looks like this over the whole outside of it, so that'll keep it from leaking. But there are no screws through this down through. It's all just sealed on there. Now normally you wouldn't want to do this part right now because I don't have the other end hooked up, but because we have such nice weather today and it's going to go away soon, I'm going to hook it up. I have the wires separated down there. It's only 100 watts, so not a lot of power. So I'm going to go ahead and plug these in so I can mount the panel and get that stuff drying. Now these just plug in just like this. You'll hear them click into place. I'm using black for negative, red for positive. And then I'll put this down and I can mount it to the roof. Now once you make sure it's straight and you've got it where you want it, set it in place. And this is very important. Underneath, before you mount it, underneath these parts here, you want to put some of this sealant tape underneath there before you screw anything in there. You want it to be right across the holes. Don't worry about any excess. You can take that off later. You want to do that on all four before you make any screws in. Okay, once you've got that done on all four, give one more look over, make sure it's straight, relatively. Normally you want to keep it away from anything else as much as possible so that it doesn't shade the panel at all. this should be fine for what we're doing. The AC might shade it a little bit in the winter, but in the summer the sun's directly overhead, so it shouldn't be a problem. Alrighty, now we'll screw it in. And this is a metal roof, so depending on what your roof material is made out of, you may have different mounting options as far as your screws. This brackets come with a set of self-tapping metal screws with washers on them, rubber washers to seal it, and I'll put those down through. But afterwards I'll put some of that lap sealant like this all around where I mount this to make sure it doesn't leak. Okay, and all the bolts are in. Now I'll go get the sealant, take off this excess, go get the sealant, and we'll cover that up. Now for lap sealant, I'm just using this Dicor Products self-leveling lap sealant. Get this at Amazon or any RV store, and that's what I'm going to use to seal up above all these things. Doesn't have to look real pretty. It'll self-level over a few minutes here, and then it'll just look like that older stuff that's all grayed there. So this is what it looks like when it's new. And just make sure you cover everything real good, and you should be good to go. There you have it. As you can see on the first one I did, it's already starting to level out, self-level. Like I said, we're barely in the temperature parameters today, so I wanted to get this done while it's still warm. But yeah, did the same thing around that there, and we should be good to go. Now we're going back inside. So I'll leave that up here, weighted down a little bit, let it dry. We got good warmth. It's about 65 out right now, which is about 15 degrees higher than it was supposed to be, so that's why I want to take advantage of this. So let that dry, and then I'll work on the inside while it's finishing up. The van over there getting its charge going on too on this nice day. Remember, it was just 8 degrees 2 days ago, so yeah, this is weird. Okay, so you can see where the wires are coming through there. I need to take them down through here, down into that, and then follow the vent pipe over toward the power center and that cabinet right there. So that's the next step, is to drill this wires down through. Okay, I've got their power center open now, and this will vary depending on your RV also, so if you don't feel comfortable with this part, I don't blame you. But what I trace back, this black wire here is the main positive coming from the batteries. This is the negative, and they've got a ground block back here, which is handy. So I'll take my positive from the solar panel. The red will come in here, and it will go in this. It'll go in this last lug here. That'll hook directly up to the battery wire, and then I'll take the negative from the solar panel, and I'll just attach it to the ground block there. Excuse me, before I get that far. The positive and the negative from the solar panel will go into these two slots, and then I'll take another wire to what I just said from the positive and the negative on the battery on this. This is for load, and I don't think I'm going to use it in this situation because I just want it to be on all the time. Turning those batteries on, charging the batteries all the time. So at any rate, from the roof we'll go into the solar panel plus a negative. Then I'll take some excess piece of that wire there to go from positive and negative here, positive to this lug here, negative to the ground bar there. And then I was thinking, while I'm here working, they don't really have any good USB ports in here to charge their stuff. There's going to be one on the charger there, but I was thinking maybe I had this laying around. Maybe I'll mount this right here. Then with the flip of a switch, they can see what their voltage is. They'll have a cigarette lighter and then a couple of USB ports all right here, and I'll wire it up so that when you turn the power on, it powers all this. Turn the switch off, cuts all the power to everything, so you don't have to worry about leaving power on. And then they'll have a countertop here where they can set phones or whatever they want to charge, and they can charge it up. I was hoping to get the charge controller to a spot where they could do that, and I guess they technically could in that cabinet, but this will be a lot more convenient and a lot better looking to have this here, and then they can just see where their batteries are at and all that stuff right there. Okay, I've got the wires through and I tidied them up with these zip ties and holders, and these have a sticky back on them, and while that's great for placement, they don't hold very well. So in addition, I'm using a little small screw to also hold it in there. I did it all the way through here, sorry about the lighting, down through here, all the way over. Next we'll wire it in. Okay, I've got the charge controller mounted. Now I'm going to wire in the panel lights, the panel wires, before I cut off and use the excess to come down to the power center. So that's what's next. Sorry, between my hat and my glasses, I can't see a thing here. Hopefully you guys can. Want to be careful when you strip these so you don't get too much of the wire. These are double coated, double jacketed I should say. The outside jacket is for UV, the inside is for insulation purposes. So you just want to be careful you don't get too much of it. Make sure you get it behind the screw. Good tight. Okay, so with that done, now I need to take these excess pieces, tie them in down to the power center. And I'm going to wire those. I think I'm going to go back and around underneath right there so that there's not a bunch of, I guess we have enough, but I don't want a bunch of extra wire showing. So I'm going to go, that's how I'm going to do it. I did the same thing for those excess wires, took them down through the other cabinet under here, and tied them up so they're nice and clean there. Now I'll need to hook everything in to the main power. Okay, now that positive's hooked in there. I'm leaving all the excess wire back behind here because that's all that's back there anyway, is some slack in the wires so that you can move this out and work on things if you need to. It's not exactly a well-organized mess, but there's no access to it unless you pull this unit out anyway. So I hooked everything up, and as you see, looks like we're successful here. Putting 0.62 amps to the battery. Batteries are at 77%. 12.6 volts. We're not taking anything out of batteries. That's the amp hours. Now this, like I said, is not an expensive charge controller, so it's not backlit or any of those fancy things. It's just pretty straightforward. This here is the switch to turn on your load on and off, if we had a load, which we don't. And then this just cycles through all your different displays. It now shows that I have sun and there's power going to the batteries, and my batteries are currently at 12.6 volts. So that's done. As I was saying, I want to cut in this unit here on the end of this cabinet. I think I'm just going to run the wires back here, and I'll take them into the load side of this. So that can be turned on and off here, but it can also be turned on and off out there. And that's what I'll use the load side for out of this. Otherwise, it'll just be permanently charging the batteries through here. Now, another feature that you could put in if you have higher wattage solar arrays, it's wise to put a disconnect right here on these wires on the positive. You just put a disconnect there so you can turn off all the solar power coming from the roof into here, and then you can work on this. But with just 100 watts on this small little system, not really worried about that. Okay, on to the next part of our project. Okay, after much consternation, I've got this trimmed in. There isn't a lot of, as you can see where that bolt is on the back, there isn't a lot of room between the edges there, so you got to be really careful with these, getting them in there and not having anything show, but I think I got it done. Now I'll wire it up. Okay, got it wired up, got an inline 10 amp fuse here, and now just time to put it all back together. Okay, so here we are at the end of the day. Here's the unit. Turn on the switch, and it shows you your voltage that you got on your batteries, which is 12.4 right now. There's the USBs, got a blue light when those are on, and then there's a 12 volt power outlet also right here. And then when you turn off the switch, it kills everything, turns off the power. So a successful install. And when we get some more sun tomorrow, hopefully it'll be charging these batteries. I'll do some more testing, but I think we're good to go. And that's how you do it. If you have any questions or any concerns or any tips that you might give me for how to speed this up in the future, leave them below. But pretty simple, pretty easy install. Next thing I got to do is get them to change all these to LED light bulbs so that they can save some energy. But that's maybe next Christmas we'll do that. Until next time.
Living for you is easy living. It's easy to live when you're in love.